On today's video, I'm going to talk about the 5 foods I suggest you eat if you want to lose 50 pounds in 5 months, like I did almost a decade and a half ago. But on today's video, we're going to throw a little spin on it. I'm going to give you 5 protein sources, 5 carb sources, and 5 fat sources that I think make up the perfect diet. The one I used back then, along with some tweaks that, knowing what I know now, I would implement right away. So let's just start with the top 5 proteins. Protein, in my opinion, is the most important nutrient. It, along with calories, are the 2 factors I help most people master right out of the gate. In fact, if you're looking to start transforming today, I have this whole 7-day momentum building shred that you can check out in the first comment below that will outline in more detail some of this nutrition stuff. I highly suggest you get on that as you go through this video. The first source of protein that has over time become my #1 source is beef. Now, I'm not talking about sirloin steaks or ribeyes or tomahawk steaks, even though those are amazing and could have a place in your diet. I'm talking about lean ground beef, at least 93% lean ground beef. The reason why I like lean ground beef is it's very versatile. You can put it in tacos, you can eat it by itself if you wanted to, you can mix it with rice or potatoes, and a number of things. You can also make burgers, you can make burritos, you can even mix it in pasta if your kids like pasta and beef. It's a really versatile food, and it's high in protein and very moderate in fat if you get the leaner version of ground beef. Now, of course, there's the fattier type of ground beef, which is like the 80%, the 85%. I suggest going leaner, 90% bare minimum. But for me personally, I tend to actually go the 95-5 route because it's basically all protein. Only 5% of the total calories come from fat. Easily made in a pan. You can even make patties and put it in the air fryer. It's just a really easy protein source that I think everyone, including myself, should have in rotation. Now, the second one is egg whites. And I know what you might be saying. What about the egg yolk itself? We're gonna talk about that when we talk about fat sources. Don't get me wrong, I love eggs, but egg whites are really versatile too. They're an easy way to get an additional amount of protein in your diet. You can cook up a bunch of egg whites and mix them together with carb sources like one of the ones I'm gonna talk about later on that might be a little controversial, but I think you'll like it. But egg whites are easy too because you can buy them in a carton. You can even pour them in a protein shake to add to the protein content of the shake without having to add more and more scoops of protein powder. I know egg whites don't really taste great, but they're super easy to put together. And when you mix them up with like sugar-free ketchup or hot sauce, they're an easy source of a high amount of protein. That's all there is in egg whites. They're just protein. So it's really, really valuable when you're trying to hit a higher protein goal. So I keep egg whites in my rotation, and I think it's something you should consider too. Now, the next one up might not surprise you. We're gonna go with chicken. And I know chicken is everybody's butt of the joke, right? Chicken, rice, and broccoli diets. That's what us, I guess more modern day fitness professionals will always harp on. Don't need to eat chicken, rice, and broccoli. But if we're being honest, chicken's a pretty solid source of protein. It's, once again, really low in fat, easy to prep, and it tastes relatively good if you know how to cook. It's also something that you can acquire at most restaurants, at most grocery stores, and even some fast food places now that offer grilled chicken as a protein source. But it's just about combining it with the right supporting actors from carbs and fats that make chicken part of a really enjoyable diet. For me personally, I love making chicken wraps. You can mix in things like Greek yogurt, which we'll talk about next, along with some high protein cheese and some veggies, and you can make some really delicious high protein sources of food that taste really good too. Number 4 on my protein list is Greek yogurt. Greek yogurt, especially the non-fat Greek yogurt, is incredibly versatile. First of all, it's super high in protein. And if you go the non-fat route, it has no fat. It does have some carbs, so you do need to pay attention to that, but it's used in so many different ways. First of all, it can be used to make sauces that are high in protein. You can also create dessert bowls with some fruit and some honey and some other things that just make it taste really good. You can go the flavored non-fat Greek yogurt side too, so that you're getting a little bit of flavor along with the yogurt. But ultimately, I've found that Greek yogurt is one of those things that I always have to have in my refrigerator, and it's an easy on-the-go snack, and plus my kids love it too, so that makes things a heck of a lot easier. Now, I was determining what my 5th protein source should be, and I started thinking, okay, I want to go with another food that's basically all protein. So I landed on shrimp. Now, some of you might be allergic to shellfish or may just not like seafood whatsoever, but some of you do like seafood. So I wanted to include a seafood source. And for me, shrimp is probably the way I'm gonna go, simply because it's all protein. I don't have to worry about the fat, the carbs, unless I'm getting like breaded shrimp and coated in oil and all that stuff. I'm just talking about your standard grilled shrimp. Once again, something you can find in a lot of restaurants, something you could find at grocery stores that you could make yourself, something easy you could throw in the pan that is gonna give you a significant amount of protein. So that's why I went with shrimp. I like shrimp tacos. I like shrimp on its own too with just rice. It tastes really good. It's not my number one favorite food in the world, but I do think shrimp should be on most people's top 5 protein sources. Now we're gonna go to the carbs. And before I do that, I just wanna reiterate, if you're looking for a starting plan, I have a 7-day momentum building shred that you can start below. I'm not gonna promise you that you're gonna rapidly get shredded or anything like that, but it will absolutely get you on the path, especially with your nutrition, to getting the body that you want. Especially if you're like me, busy dad, business owner, hardworking, sometimes stressed out individual that has a lot of responsibilities. The last thing I want is a diet that I hate or that I can't stick to. So I put together the 7-day program to get you on the right path. And ultimately, if you need more help, we have more resources below, including a proven 15-year track record with helping people like you transform how they look, how they feel, and how they perform. Check all that out, but let's jump into the carb sources that I think are gonna work best for you. So number 1 for me is potatoes. Potatoes are, according to science, the most satiating food out there. And what do I mean by satiating? It just means the food that's gonna give you the most filling feeling, okay? That means we're not gonna be as hungry. We're gonna get filled up with less calories required. And this is a game changer when it comes to fat loss. The last thing we want to do is eat a bunch of meals that we're hungry 5 minutes later from. I like to keep potatoes in most of my meals when I'm getting super shredded. Why? Because I can control my calories way easier. I actually love potatoes. That's probably the Irish part of me, but I really do enjoy cooking potatoes in a variety of ways. I like just your standard sliced up homemade fries. I like mashed potatoes. There's healthy ways to make mashed potatoes for sure. I also like the smashed baked potatoes that are like crispy on the outside, softer in the middle. I love potatoes. I probably sound like a potato commercial right now, but potatoes are absolutely number 1, hands down my favorite carb. Highly recommend them. Now I promised that I would be a little controversial with one of these carb sources, and this is the one. I'm gonna call grits my second favorite. Now, hope nobody gets grossed out, but I like making grits and mixing chicken, beef, shrimp, all inside these grits. Like I probably should have been raised in like New Orleans or something because I love grits. I don't really know where my love of grits came from. I know my parents, my mom especially, would make grits for us as kids here and there. But over time, I just fell in love with grits. So for me, it's number 2 on the list. Once again, super easy to put together. And unlike oatmeal, it doesn't sit in my stomach. Like it goes through the process of digestion. It breaks down pretty easily for me. Oatmeal, on the other hand, it's kind of a slow burn. Sometimes I feel too full. And once again, I know being full is not a bad thing, but for me, oatmeal just kind of makes me feel lethargic. So I go with grits over oats, and hence why it's number 2 on my list. Now, number 3 is fruit. Now, fruit covers a broad spectrum. You know, there's berries, there's oranges, there's bananas, there's apples, there's kiwi, there's all sorts of cool stuff. I'm gonna leave it up to you, but I'll give you my favorite sources of fruit. Number 1 being apples. Apples are so versatile. An apple a day keeps the doctor away. Take an apple to school. I used to do that as a kid. I still pack my kids an apple each every single day. Apples are very, very low in calories, high in fiber, and they taste amazing. So apples will probably be my number 1. I'd say number 2 is berries. So blueberries, raspberries, strawberries. Extremely low in calories and can be combined with things like Greek yogurt or just be eaten by themselves as a snack. Berries are extremely healthy. They have so many vitamins and minerals for your body to remain super healthy. Not to mention, they do taste really good. So berries would be my number 2. I love bananas, especially when I'm in more of a performance phase because there's more calories in bananas. Plus they have potassium and they do taste good when combined with chocolate and peanut butter. If we're just being honest, chocolate, peanut butter, banana, protein smoothie, the best thing ever. So if I were to make a protein bar one day, that'd probably be the flavor I would go with, by the way. So, hey, by the way, if you know anyone who can help me make my own protein bar, I would love to talk to you. So chocolate, peanut butter, banana protein bars, don't steal my idea. But if you have someone or could help me with that, just let me know in the comments. If you're watching, maybe it's meant to be. There's fate all working together here. All right, so number 4 might be surprising. I almost went with bread. And don't get me wrong, bread is amazing. I love bread. I eat bread all the time. But my go-to when I'm trying to remain lean or get super lean is English muffins. I love English muffins. I, once again, don't know where this came from. I think my parents introduced me to English muffins as a kid and something stuck. But I do love bagels. Bagels are just way higher in calories for the most part. I can eat 2 English muffins typically and get the same amount of calories as 1 big bagel. So I go with the volume approach here, and English muffins when you toast them up and you have them with some eggs or egg whites, it's just really good. I can't really put my finger on it, but it's addicting and I love it. So English muffins would be my number 4 carb source. Now, number 5, once again, I debated on number 5. There's a couple different routes we could have gone here. We could have gone with pasta. We could have gone with bread again, but I went with rice. Rice has its place in my nutrition plan, more so when I'm trying to maintain or just random occurrences. You know, I have an Afghan wife whose parents make a ton of rice all the time. And so I'll partake in that pretty frequently, especially when I'm not trying to, cut down in weight and when I'm trying to train for something that requires a lot of calories. Rice, for me at least, isn't very filling. It actually goes through my system really smoothly, especially white rice, which is my favorite source of rice. Brown rice, not so much. I don't love how I feel after I eat brown rice. I like jasmine rice, I like basmati rice, but rice would be number 5. It's easy to put together. Plus you have rice packets and rice cups you can buy at the store. Really convenient stuff. And you can put together a pretty easy meal relatively fast. So that covers our 5 carb sources. I hope this is helping so far. By the way, if you need more help with your diet, I have a 7-day momentum building shred. I've mentioned it a couple times, but I'll just reiterate the fact that we have that plus some more free stuff, including a metabolic assessment in the description of this video. If you're interested in learning more about where your metabolism health is, that would be a good step for you as well. We also have some paid programs, including our high-end first-class VIP transformation system for people like yourself who ultimately just want to lead their family through health and fitness and want to be the example, not just for their family, but for themselves too. They want to feel good with their shirt off in a bathing suit, but need a sustainable plan that makes sense for them. So there's a lot of stuff. I won't bore you to tears with all of it. Check it out when you have a second. Let's jump into the fat sources that I would recommend. Now, this is where I think there needs to be a little more education because fat, it's hard to find sources of just fat, even though, yes, they're definitely out there. Butter would be a good example. Oil, I've included an oil on this list, but most of the fat that I get in my diet and that I would recommend you get in your diet is from sources of protein. So we're gonna start with number 1, which is eggs. I think eggs are arguably the healthiest food on the planet, especially if they come from a reliable source. But eggs taste amazing. And once again, they're things you can get pretty much anywhere. So eggs would be my number 1 source of fat because the yolk itself is basically all fat with some protein, of course. Then the egg white contains a significant amount of protein as well, but no fat. So eggs are number 1 because if you're eating egg whites, you can include a couple eggs and all of a sudden you have a very balanced meal along with some carbs. Number 2 is going to be beef. I know we already talked about beef, but beef has fat. And if you go the steak route, especially something like a ribeye, which is much fattier than something like a sirloin steak or even like a filet mignon who has a decent amount of fat. A ribeye is pretty fatty. So if you need more fat in your diet, I'm gonna go with the beef. Beef is just, once again, very versatile. So you can get the protein and you can get the fat that your body needs to support hormonal health, physical health, and energy. Okay, so let's talk about the next source. Now, seafood coming at you again. This time we're going with salmon. Now, salmon is a protein source, don't get me wrong, but man, it's got a lot of fat too, and it's got a lot of healthy fats. So I'm gonna tell you, I like to get salmon in my diet at least once or twice a week. My wife and I love salmon, our kids love salmon, so we eat salmon pretty frequently, just not every single day, but at least once or twice a week. If you're at the Novak house, we'll have some salmon for dinner. Omegas, protein, super, super good, and it tastes really good, by the way. So salmon. Now, I was gonna throw halibut in this list because halibut is my favorite fish, but I'm just not a huge seafood guy. I don't eat seafood that often, even though I do enjoy it. So salmon is something that I think a lot of you will either like or have at your disposal that you can easily make and get the fats that you need for brain health, heart health, and all the fun stuff that omegas provide. Number 4, we're gonna go with arguably my favorite food on earth, but just the one that I really struggle to control, so I don't eat it a lot, and that is peanut butter. Peanut butter is amazing, but once again, it's mostly fat. In fact, it's a really significant amount of calories for a very small amount. If you've ever measured out 1 serving of peanut butter, which is usually 2 tablespoons, it's pretty depressing how little peanut butter you get to eat for that amount of calories. But does it have its place in my diet from time to time? For sure. It's an easy way to get calories. And in some points in my diet, I do carbs down a bit, not completely to 0. That's not sustainable nor enjoyable. But some nights I'll finish my day with a little bit of peanut butter because that's just what my diet calls for. That being said, be careful with peanut butter. It's very easy to overeat, but it is a good source of fat. You could also throw in almond butter here or whatever nut butter you enjoy. At the end of the day, peanut butter is my number 1. All right, let's wrap up the fat list with the oil that I talked about, which is, in my case, olive oil. Now, olive oil may not be the top source of oil that I would cook with, even though we do cook with some olive oil, especially when we're making up like an Italian-based meal or sometimes when we cook beef, we even cook in a little bit of olive oil just to add some flavor. And of course, it does add some fat. It's basically all fat in the oil. Once again, something to be very careful with. Olive oil is healthy, but I also like avocado oil for a cooking oil. That's really, really good from a heat perspective. Something you could add in your rotation. Oils all are pretty similar in their calories and their fat content. Usually it's about 14 grams of fat per serving. So just be very, very careful because every gram of fat has 9 calories. This is where a lot of people struggle with their diet. It's not the carbs that they're overeating. It's the sneaky little fats from the oils, from the butters and all that gets into their nutrition, and they're not even realizing how many calories they're eating. So be very, very careful with that. So that wraps up my list of my top 5 favorite proteins, carbs, and fats. I've done another video on my top 5 favorite foods that I lost 50 pounds in 5 months. You can check that out. A lot of similar stuff to this video, so you may not get anything new out of it. But I will say YouTube probably put a video here that's best for you. In the meantime, though, remember, your next step, go check out the 7-day momentum building shred, or just watch one of my most recent videos because they're all designed to help you make a true transformation. As always, I'm Josiah Novak with thetruetransformation.com. Life moves fast, make it count. Talk to you in the next one.